Hello again, fellow old school metal vinyl lunatics. Welcome back to the channel. BEHERIT, The Oath of Black Blood, hands down one of the most seminal and legendary releases in the history of the genre. I've got several requests to cover my vinyl collection by the band, especially after a picture of said collection was published on my Instagram account. Now, that would probably take way too much time because my collection of Beherit stuff consists of roughly 25 items, but I did decide to focus on the first full-length LP by the band released in 1991, and this is my very last chance to do so because guess what? My copy of the very first pressing of the album, 1991 Turbo Records music, was recently sold. Just like that, I will not have a second chance to discuss it. Now, a few bio notes. I know that this band would not require any additional information because all of you guys listening to this are all the farts just like myself. I'm sure you can tell the band's discography from A to Z in 10 seconds or less. But for the youngsters around and for the ones of you who have been living under a rock for the past 40 years, here's a bunch of useless info because this is what this channel is all about, providing useless info with an incredibly annoying voice by a poser. Just like that, 1989, Year of the Lord, some dude called Marco Laiho, hailing from Rovaniemi in Finland, decides to form a black metal band, pioneering a weird mixture of traditional Bathorish black metal mixed with sarcophago craziness and some grindcore and some death metal and some noise extravaganza, all mixed together in the same cauldron, and just like that, Beherit was born. They released their very first demo tape, The Seventh Blasphemy, in 1990, which was also the year of release of the second demo tape, Demonomancy. Now, Demonomancy kind of established Beherit as one of the leading forces in black metal underground, and just like that, it captured the attentions of a label called Turbo Records, an indie label from Germany, which sadly enough over the years would acquire a rather nasty rip-off reputation. There are still bands around these days who complain like they never got a single penny from the royalties they were due to the thanks to the albums they put out on this label. Whatever the story concerning this reputation might be, it's no question that Turbo Records actually helped play the big role on putting Beherit's band name on the map, thanks mainly to their first two 7-inch EPs released in 1991, the first one of which being the picture disc Dawn of Satan's Millennium, incredibly cool release, which would be later followed only a couple of months later by the split EP with Death Yell from Chile, which is another great band. Totally recommend you to check them out. Now, these two EPs are sold extremely well. If I have to believe the info provided by the old fans in Hammer of Damnation, they sold thousands of copies, and just like that, the label decided to sign the band for one more release, which in the intentions would be the very first Beherit full-length album. Now, the history concerning this release now might differ considering whom you decide to believe to. Like, according to the label, they sent off some money all the way to Finland to finance the recording of the album. And just like that, the band decided it was a smart idea to spend the money they received on booze and drugs and whatnot. And all the label was provided with was a bunch of empty beer cans and not the mastering of the record, which was kind of like hilarious. I mean, not that it's something that really happened, just my own interpretation of the story. If you believe what Marcos has to say on this subject, he did not deny that the label actually sent him some money. He actually claimed that the money was not enough to record the album. Whatever the history behind the LP was, the label still stuck to the decision of releasing the album, and since they had no properly recorded material at that point, they simply decided to come up with a collection of stuff, of all BEHERIT stuff, which had already been released at that point. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, that's what The Oath of Black Blood is all about. It's a compilation album and technically a bootleg, since it was released without the band's permission. It consists of side 1, which is literally just a repress of the Demonomancy demo tape, and side 2, which is actually a repress of the picture disc Dawn of Satan's Millennium, which I just showed you. Here it is again. So yeah, this is technically a bootleg, and nonetheless it acquired a cultish reputation in the underground, thanks also to the incredibly gifted cover artwork by Chris Moyen. Now, I had a chance to talk about Chris Moyen's artworks in the past. I'm not the man's biggest fan ever, but there's no question about it. This is a totally killer artwork. It's an iconic artwork from back in the day, and it served as an inspiration for countless of rip-off bands. Now, this version that you have just seen, this copy is being sold. You can expect to pay anywhere in between 200 and 400 euros, depending on the conditions. My very first copy of this album was actually the CD version, which you're now seeing in my hands. It was bought in 1992, if I remember correctly. It was, yeah, probably 1992, in a small store called Moffert Music from Udine, a town nearby the one I used to live in. And I gotta admit, when I was my first confrontation with BEHERIT's music was not easy, like back then I was, death metal fanboy, just like all of you people into their late 40s, into your late 40s. And my ears were used to this, traditional Morris sound kind of sound. And I did find the incredibly primitive, raw, and poorly recorded approach of BEHERIT to be pretty hard to get into. But in the end, I just listened to this album so many times that it just became one of my favorites. And after that, I was totally sold, started collecting everything concerning the band. The printing quality of these two releases, very primitive, much like the music. Primitive music, primitive pressing quality. I mean, it's still, like glossy paper. The picture itself is kind of blurry. The CD is even worse, if possible, because like if you can tell, like the cover is pressed on a single piece of paper. It's a very thin one, actually. And the CD itself is probably a mini CD. Now, I don't remember how much is the band, if it is the album's length at all, but it's probably clocks like around half an hour or less than that, because it's literally just a repress of a demo tape and 7-inch EP, so it can't possibly be more than 20-25 minutes, maybe even less than 1 hour. Now, these are the two versions which I had originally acquired. The first one, which was sold. The second one, the CD, will stay in my collection because I need a physical copy to listen to the album. There's a third version which I acquired in 2011, if I remember correctly. Was it 2011? I think so, yeah, 2011, which came out on Nil Before the Master's Throne Records from Germany. And my god, this is a work of beauty, like joy for the eyes, totally. This is one of the best reissues I've ever seen in my life of any given album. It's picture disc, at least in its die-hard editions. This is the die-hard edition, limited to 100 copies. Incredibly well put together, totally professionally done, filled to the brim with all sorts of extras. You get this gigantic poster which I never hung. You get this sticker, you get a patch, you get like bio sheet, whatever. Absolutely great all the way around. 10 out of 10 release. I dare to say this is even better than the original one under many points of view. Like, if you compare the two, you can tell, for instance, that Holocaustos picture looks way better on the repress than it does on the original version. So it's up to you. If you don't want to spend anywhere in between 200 and 400 euro, which is the price an original goes for, you might settle down for this incredibly good pressing. I know that there is another pressing around by that lame label called Nuclear War now, which I have zero respect for, so I will not talk about that one, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm tempted to keep this pressing in my collection. As I said before, my whole BEHERIT vinyl collection is for sale, so if you're looking for any of the other items, including the 2 EPs you have seen, just feel free to drop me a line. But this version, I'm thinking about keeping it actually, because it's so well done, so well put together, so professionally released, that that's just a pity for me to sell it. So unless you have a really great offer to, put on the table, this one is gonna stay with me. So guys, that does it again for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to share down in the comments your honest opinions concerning this release, this band. Really curious to check them out. As usual, this channel is just about, discussing music and vinyl releases. So as long as you're being respectful and don't start flaming, your contributions are absolutely loved and appreciated. Until the next time, just like that, keep it loud and heavy as usual.